You know, a couple weeks ago I was outside looking up into the sky, and it was just a beautiful, clear, dark sky. And as I was standing there just wrapped in attention to this extraordinary vision, a comet-like presence, a meteor, traversed the sky. And a young lad who grew up to be the Dalai Lama, I dreamt at that moment, was watching at the same time as I. All knowledge begins in wonder, and I think one of the most extraordinary gifts is to be filled with that wonder throughout one's life. And here's the gentleman who I think has been so filled with wonder throughout his whole life, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Welcome, Your Holiness. You want to sit there?
Hi. No problem.
Okay.
Got it.
Please. Good morning. We need to have our dialogue partners mic'd, unless I'm going to be doing all the talking.
Okay.
While Richie and Amishi are being mic'd, I'd like to perform the official function of not only welcoming them, but welcoming also you all into this dialogue between His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Richard Davidson, and Amishi Jha. Richie is, of course, a dear friend, colleague, and is a leader in the whole field of contemplative neuroscience, in some sense one of the founders of that field. He's very widely known for his work on the relationship between the brain and emotion. And on that topic, and together with Sharon Begley, he authored the best-selling book, The Emotional Life of Your Brain. In addition, he is co-author or editor of 13 other books and has published more than 300 chapters and research articles. Recipient of numerous awards for his work, including the Research Scientist Award from the National Institute of Mental Health and the Distinguished Scientific Contribution Award from the American Psychological Association. He is a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Amishi Jha is the director of Contemplative Neuroscience for Mindfulness Research and Practice Initiative at the University of Miami. She has received numerous awards for her teaching and innovation in science, including a PopTech Science and Public Leadership Fellow in 2010. She has grants from many sources for her research, which goes in education, business, and the applications of mindfulness even into the military. Her work has been featured in media outlets, and she has talked and represented this field with extraordinary grace and articulation. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Finally, if there's anybody on the planet who needs no introduction, I mean, this is the gentleman. But nonetheless, Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama, is the leader of Tibetan Buddhism and a Buddhist teacher, you could say even more widely, to all of us, Buddhists and non-Buddhists alike. He was born in July 6, 1935, in a small village in northeastern Tibet to a peasant family, and recognized at a very young age, I think 2, as the reincarnation of his predecessor, the 13th Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lamas are understood to be manifestations of compassion, and I think they made a good choice in this case. He was
I think,
with.
fortunately, you never saw my angry face. Okay.
I look forward to that. He was the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989 and is a respected spokesperson for the compassionate and peaceful resolution of human conflicts. Perhaps what is not as well known has been his long-standing interest from childhood all the way through to the present day in science, and it is on that theme, the relationship between science and the contemplative, that we will be dialoguing today. And we have then these two august scientists who will be working very closely together with His Holiness the Dalai Lama to really explore themes born out of contemplative neuroscience, philosophy, and societal applications, one could say, the ways in which these bear fruit in our society today. So please, let's begin.
Wonderful. Thank you, Arthur, and thank you, Your Holiness. Your Holiness, when I look out at the 1,700 people here today, I'm reminded of how lonely the journey was at the very beginning. When Dan Goleman and I were together at Harvard in the mid-1970s and began to do this work, there was Francisco, a few other people, but fewer probably than 10 people on the planet who are doing this kind of research. And to see this growth and flourishing is a very significant dream that has manifested and I think is doing such important good in the world. And Your Holiness, you have been such an inspiration and so important in catalyzing these new fields of inquiry that we come together here to discuss, to celebrate, and to further. There are, as we mentioned, there are 23 countries that are represented here. This is the second of the international symposia on contemplative studies that Mind and Life has sponsored. And this meeting is literally double, more than double, the size of the first one. And so it's just a testament to the extraordinary interest in this area among scientists, among practitioners, and this is a meeting that includes a very diverse range of individuals: contemplative scholars, scientists, practitioners, artists, all of whom are united by an interest in bringing contemplative inquiry into the specific domains in which they work. And this morning, we will explore through questions to Your Holiness a series of issues that have been central to the Mind and Life dialogues. But I want to begin by just recognizing the founding of Mind and Life 27 years ago with Francisco Varela and Amy, his wife, is here with us today, and she has assumed a very important position as the new president of the Mind and Life European Board, and we're really thrilled to have Amy, such an important part of the Mind and Life family, and carrying on the great tradition and extraordinarily significant work of Francisco that is so important to the core DNA, the core mission of Mind and Life. So it's great to have you here and to recognize that. So before we begin with questions, Your Holiness, I wonder if you can perhaps just make a few remarks to open this session and reflect on both the significance of your involvement with Mind and Life over almost 3 decades, and the importance of the conversation with scientists, and also the new extensions in which Mind and Life is now involved in applying some of the insights that we've gleaned from the laboratory and trying to bring them out into the real world to benefit people in a variety of different settings.
Respected, my dear long-time friend or collaborators,
Colleagues now.
Colleagues.
Colleagues.
And the rest of the brothers, sisters. I always consider myself one of the 7 billion human beings. We are a social animal. Each individual's happy life or even survival depend on the rest of the community. Now today's world, because of technology and communication much easier, and also lifestyle, so now whole 7 billion human beings, so directly or indirectly, very much interrelated. So I fully committed. Now 80 years, nearly 80 years old, now remaining maybe 10, 15, 20 years, I totally committed. Promotion of sense of oneness of humanity. Once we develop that, I think then a lot of man-made problem can reduce, if not sort of eliminate completely. So much sort of our problem is ultimately this very very strong sense of we and they, and self-centered attitude. Then no respect to others' life. Killing, bullying, cheating. So we, as a part of the humanity, we cannot remain indifferent. Right? Really worthwhile. Make some effort. Whether achieve or not, it's a different question. It's how morals of the
Responsible.
Think. Make an attempt. Now, science. I am Buddhist monk. And our tradition, Buddhist tradition, and Nalanda tradition, our way of thinking is one Buddha's quotation. Oh, my follower, Buddha stated, my follower, monks, scholars, should not accept my teaching out of faith, out of devotion, but rather thorough investigation and research work and test or experiment. So, the many prominent Nalanda masters, they are thinking that way. Always investigate. Even Buddha's own word, they not easily take.
Accept it.
Accept it.
Literally.
Accept.
Literally.
So therefore, modern science also instrument or method investigate what's the reality. So basically, as a student of Nalanda tradition, naturally interest about the scientific way of investigation. Since my very young age. Then I think practical level. I think perhaps I may say this way. So then gradually I developed contact directly with scientists. Beginning my own out of curiosity.
Curiosity.
Then gradually it became clear. Oh, meeting with scientists is something quite beneficial to both sides. So then eventually it institutionalized. And Tibetan side, now our major monastic institution, already start a lesson of science. And actually, formally the kasore.
In fact, it has been incorporated into the curriculum itself, so that there is an important examination called the Giluk examination, and science is one of the required topics, subjects in that exam.
So, we, as a Buddhist sort of a student or Nalanda student, although there are some the topic like cosmology or the particles or important quantum physics, the concept already there. So further sort of
Discussion.
further enrich as a result of meeting with scientists. And then scientists, they about quite detailed sort of explanation about the human mind, human emotion. I think these people, as a result of a few decades, now they, I think their knowledge about mind, about emotion, I think a little bit enriched by Buddhist information. And especially you, as a brain specialist, you try to find what is the emotion, purely test in animal brain. Difficult. Human mind, you see, human brain is something very special. So in order to know the more profound way, the movement of brain sort of cells, naturally, the mind or emotion, something very close. So they also find some useful. So our sort of the cooperation is actually enriching our knowledge in external world, internal world. It's purely knowledge, right? Or scientific knowledge. I think this meeting simply expand our knowledge about reality, external as well as internal. This is number one. Number two, obviously, we have this physical and this mind. So our top priority is happy life. So in order to achieve happy life means healthy body, healthy mind. So modern science mainly related with physical or material. This is immense help to bring physical health. At the same time, now some scientists begin to realize for healthy body, healthy mind is very, very crucial. So if may I say so with respect, I say usual sort of the method to bring peace of mind, tranquilizer, and alcohol, maybe drugs. So if there is another way, is it to bring inner peace, it's worthwhile to explore. So through training of mind, or some kind of shaping your own mind, through that way bring mental peace. It's worthwhile. We are not talking about next life or heaven or hell or from Buddhist celebration or nirvana. We're not talking these things. Simply how to build happy individual, then happy family, then happy society, then ultimately happy humanity. So that's, I think, responsibility to scientists. Scientists, not only just, you see, as of the expansion, knowledge, but also is there some implication, right?
Applications of knowledge.
Implication for well-being of humanity. There's there, that responsibility there. I think in the past, I think scientists, including nuclear physicists, you see, they really made immense sort of contribution to bring more fear. Nuclear weapon, the Newton bomb. You see, more fear. Their remarkable brain, you see, devoted development of destruction, pity. Such a wonderful brain used for suffering or fear is quite a pity. On the other hand, people who involve about inner peace, various different institutions, actual sort of what's the purpose is bring inner peace. But religious faith also sometimes causing for division, killing. This very moment we are enjoying here. Quite happy sort of experience. Same planet, same time, killing in the name of religion. So the faith, religious faith, also now sometimes causing problem. The scientific knowledge also sometimes is causing problem. So that, I think, our challenge. The religion supposed to see to bring inner peace and bring harmony and sense of brotherhood, sisterhood. And for that reason, the very concept of creator, all 7 billion human beings created by one God or one Allah. If we seriously thinking these things, then there's no room killing each other. But faith sometimes, you see, create more division, more hatred, very bad. We have to think. And then scientists. So therefore, this kind of sort of meeting, you see, how to
Find.
uh,
How to find.
how to develop
Develop.
healthy world, happy world. One way, simply extend our knowledge, external world, internal world. And the second is use this knowledge and how to bring happy world. And then I think I may some sort of connection. Out of 7 billion, over 1 billion non-believer. So the only way to educate these people, to bring conviction about inner value, is scientific research. For health, good health, peace of mind. Now that is the scientist's responsibility, not my responsibility. Explain. Through their finding, more compassionate mind, your health will be better. Constant anger, constant sort of fear, very bad for their health. If these people say, then these non-believer I think, pay more attention. If I, as a Buddhist monk, 1,000 times say, they may not see, oh, Buddhist, Buddhist, Buddhist. So here also you see our cooperation is really sort of useful, clear. As a Buddhist monk, I often telling or take as a quotation these scientists sort of findings. There's more sort of
Attraction.
more weight.
Right.
Like that. So now I'm looking forward to
Having a dialogue.
to serious discussion. Like that. So thank you. That's all.
So Amishi will lead us off with questions.
Hello, Your Holiness. This meeting, as Richie described, as Arthur described, has many scientists present. Scientists that are interested in sort of the basic way the brain functions, the ways in which we might apply, as you mentioned, contemplative practice and contemplative training to different real-world settings, and how to help with different kinds of clinical disorders, as well as bringing this into education. So there's many of us in the room that are wanting to do and are actively doing exactly what you described, and that's our passion. But I wanted to actually take a little bit of time and draw us to the journey that got us here, as Richie mentioned, because Mind and Life and your conversation with Mind and Life has been ongoing for over 25 years. And I guess I wanted to begin by saying a little bit about my own journey and how it relates to this. So I'm a neuroscientist like Richie. I study how the brain pays attention. And for the most of my training, I was studying just that. How can we understand better how the brain is able to do this important thing? But then, because of my own interest and my own practice with contemplative training, I became very impassioned and interested and just deeply curious about studying the effects of meditation itself on the brain.
So,
So in 2004, I made the conscious decision that I was going to shift my entire lab's research focus to really look at that. How does meditation change the brain and change performance, especially when it has to do with our ability to pay attention? At that time, when I decided to do this, it was almost like, I have to do this. This is what I care about. But when I informed some of my advisors and my colleagues that this is the direction I'm taking, their first response was, it's a bad idea, and it's very risky, and don't do it. Don't do it. At that point, I wanted to just begin by saying a deep bow of gratitude to Mind and Life, because the only community that existed at that point, where I, as a scientist, very interested in this, could go and meet other colleagues that wanted to combine their own first-person experience with practice with the scientific lens brought onto it, was the Mind and Life community. And I attended the first Mind and Life Summer Institute. That my first one was 2005, and it is the reason I'm able to successfully pursue these questions in my lab today, some 10 years later. So my question to you is this. You mentioned the value of science and contemplative practice coming together, but what drew you personally to wanting to engage with scientists, to dialogue with us about it? And also, how have things changed over the last almost 30 years?
first part, interest towards science from childhood. As a young boy, with the name of Dalai Lama, so I received different type of toys. So you see these toys, particularly you see those moving things.
The ones with motors that move around.
Some small sort of car. And also I remember very clearly one time when the Amishi meant those damage. The plastic special Amishi. Condos meant damage.
So there was a motorized miniature a toy of a British soldier with a gun that could actually move.
I remember that at this size. So, like that, whenever I receive that, a few moments, perhaps few days, I play. Then, out of curiosity, how movement come? Then open. Then often destroy. But no regret. Open and some knowledge, you see, movement, there's some machines.
Mechanisms.
So
So when you wind up with a key and then how the mechanism functions.
then some movie projector. There are some small dynamo produce electricity. I develop interest. So then interest about technology. Main interest is how it works, and electricity. So that's the
Initial.
initial. I think perhaps one sort of, I think waste of time now. Perhaps 1954, 55, I had opportunity to visit many big industries in China, and also big hydro
Electric dams.
Dams like that. And then also it's a factory where visiting the irons on these, melting on these things. So my entourage, including my tutors, they really fed up when they used to visit such area.
They were bored, yeah.
But
They were bored, yeah, the entourage.
me, very much interest. How it worked like that. So that's the story. And then, that's the second part.
Tong la ni ba ta tan de be lo ma bu shi bu to len nang ba to len nam ju ju wa the ma de ta ku ju lo je kar chung ma chung to len nam ba te ju ga de shi
Do change.
na ta ka tre yar je do ma do ta ju ko re sha
I am a Buddhist practitioner. As far as Buddhist practice is concerned, no need any help from scientists. But you see, the purpose of one's own practice is serving other people, serving other sentient beings. Our daily sort of prayer is as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings suffering remain, I will remain in order to serve. If that prayer is serious, then you must do. Other galaxies, we have no direct contact. Doesn't matter what happened there, we can ignore. But this our own planet, the immense suffering, which can be overcome, then it is practitioner's responsibility. At least make attempt. Then, as I already mentioned, see, I think modern society, I think people believe ultimate source of happiness or meaningful life is money. Totally wrong. Ultimate source of happiness, joyful, and also healthy body is within ourselves, our emotion. So when explained to people, then scientific finding is extremely useful, very, very helpful. Like, Aaron Beck, according to his sort of finding, as a result of many decades of his work, he mentioned my first meeting, I think in many years ago, in Sweden, Stockholm. Then his age already 84. A short conversation. See, he mentioned, and also he already gave me the book, Prisoner of Hate. And he mentioned, when we develop anger, the object feel angry, appears very negative. But actually, 90% of that negativeness is mental projection, not reality. So this, his finding, is exactly same sort of explanation in some Buddhist literature. Exactly how destructive emotion develop. Some kind of chain. So very similar. So when I tell people about some Buddhist writing, Buddhist sort of literature, then they may not pay attention. When I explain the scientist finding, Aaron Beck's sort of finding, then they pay some attention. Like that. Very helpful. As a result of meeting with scientists, only casualty for my sort of tradition is Mount Meru.
Buddhist cosmology.
Buddhist cosmology, Mount Meru, and the sun and the moon, more or less same sort of level, and more or less same size. That I took liberty, no longer believe. No problem. So this, I think, with help of, with some knowledge, with scientists or scientific finding, I think I may say this way, some of Buddhist sort of thinking now become more realistic.
Because otherwise, those who are brought up entirely in the tradition tend to take even these cosmological theories and descriptions as being, really true, with a kind of a naive attitude.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Your Holiness, over the years, you have on many occasions made reference to the extraordinarily refined distinctions in the Buddhist tradition regarding qualities of the mind. You have introduced concepts from Abhidharma and other Buddhist texts to help scientists to think more deeply about qualities of the mind. And as you see the development of neuroscience and the development of the modern science of the mind, are there particular questions that you believe are not being addressed sufficiently carefully, that the Buddhist tradition speaks to? Are there specific insights from the Buddhist understanding of mind that you think are central for modern scientists to consider seriously and to investigate?
I think several years, some occasion, that tomotomy is
Yes. Kanagana.
inches.
So His Holiness was referring to the fact that on several occasions he has made this point. One fundamental distinction drawn in Buddhist epistemology is between mental processes that are more sensory oriented and those that are more cognitive and thought oriented or conceptual.
So like faith or compassion, all these not sort of sensorial sort of
Processes.
process or experience. These are mental. So only mental level have the ability to judge. Sensorial, no that ability. And also the tongpati senju, chadini is an image of Tomi the tunju.
And another important distinction is drawn between these two different processes in the Buddhist epistemological text is that sensory experiences tend to be more immediate and in response to the external stimuli, whereas the mental processes tend to be more selective and it tends to operate through concepts and thoughts. And also, therefore, there is a more discerning ability.
So, I'm quite sure. I think your laboratory, labs, I think through these wires, I think you can easily see, because of distinction, the person now his or her mental totally relying on sensorial experiences. Now his or her no longer pay attention about sensorial level, but only mental level. And mental level also is in different sort of level. Some are fixed, some are still moving. So this, I think that
So perhaps at the most fundamental level, being able to categorically distinguish between these two processes, one more sensory and one more conceptual or thought-oriented, that seems to be an important point. So when we are operating at the level of thought, then it becomes very closely connected with the language and sound.
Those animals say no language, and those animals, some simple language, some kind of different voice, different sound.
So one would, His Holiness was saying that one could make the conjecture that even among animals, depending upon the level of sophistication in their communication, one might be able to see differences in their brain.
Then those animals, you see, only sign or physical sort of
Expressions.
expression communicate. No sort of word or sound. Then they totally rely on sensorial
experience.
Although they also have the mental. So these, so they one day, I think recently, in Dharamsala, how sort of almost teasing to scientists. So they show some sort of picture. They're testing mice, right?
The rodents, yeah.
And
And on infant, very, very young children.
So then I express human brain now complaining us. It is impossible to know my ability testing animals' brain. Human mind, much sophisticated. Human brain, much sophisticated. So, sophisticated meeting level in me some
So Solis is making the point that trying to make extrapolations and generalizations of the workings of the adult human brain based on rodent findings from rodent is a big jump.
I think we would both agree.
나병원의 랭고에 지워 힘주 제거에 나병원의 섬당변에 신다 가려나스.
I don't know. Of course, altruism. That's, I think, everybody, not only scientists, but everybody, is can take a certain Buddhist technique to further promote the strength of compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, or self-discipline, these things. So other major world religious tradition also is can learn. And as well as the Buddhists can learn some other tradition also. So in the philosophical field, that's different. One time, one very, very close Catholic monk, a wonderful monk,
Close friend. Close friend.
close friend, Father Wayne somewhere.
Brother Wayne Teasdale.
No longer. See, he often, you see, discuss with us about meditation, single-pointed meditation, and these things. So this is common practice. So we discuss these things. And then one day, he asked me about emptiness, or the interdependency, or emptiness, these things. Then I told him, oh, please don't ask these things. This is not your business. That's Buddhist business. So don't ask. And actually, I feel,
Yeah.
I feel, you see, some fear. The Buddhist concept, everything interdependency,
Relative.
or relative. No independent existence. That philosophical view might hindrance their single-pointed faith towards God, absolute, permanent. So I do not want to share these things. I do not want to shake their faith. It's not good. But some occasion, one time in France, one Christian leader was trying to convince
Was trying to convince His Holiness that God truly exists, a creator.
Buddhists know such sort of concept. So many Buddhist texts, Nalendra masters, is a lot of argument about that concept. So I know these things. So when he explained or tried to bring some kind of conviction in my mind, then yes, I listen with respect. But in deep inside, I feel useless.
So he's talking about a useless effort, trying to convince.
Because we train many texts, there's a lot of argument about concept of creator. So as a student, you see, we know these things. So meaningless effort, isn't it? And similarly, I really do not want this to bring some kind of doubt in their practice. It's not good. So it is better to keep one's own faith. So long, same purpose, promotion of compassion, love, forgiveness, tolerance. Wonderful. If you truly believe Creator, then your enemy also created by God. Actually, you see, brothers, sisters, if you really seriously thinking this line, then no basis to killing each other. Enemy, some superficial level, yes, some disagreement. But at deeper level, we all brothers, sisters. Okay.
Just one reflection, Your Holiness. Over the years, when we look back over the many decades of dialogue together, it's my impression, maybe I'm a little tainted, but it's my impression that the boundary between Buddhist business and scientific business is getting a little blurred over time.
단다 데벨롭 무슈지 돌링 슈로 지금 나 배사고 단 세리 배사고 세기 산잠데 다 가로가로가로네 맵을 잘 지금 나배 따주는 무슨 세리랜 되어요 세리 따주는 남은 나주
Now here, I think since several years, I suggested to Buddhist scholars, Tibetan Buddhist scholars, because the Buddhist scholars of Tibetan,
Tibetan tradition 남
Tibetan tradition, not in tradition.
Indian and Tibetan tradition
So sometimes you see the Tibetan Buddhism, this very word is to create some kind of impression.
image 남
Oh, Tibetan Buddhism is something different. No. All our tradition directly come from Nalanda tradition. The reason, even me, very lazy, reluctant student, I memorize, I think 7, 8-year-old, memorize all these texts wrote by Nalanda masters. Then gradually, you see, when we study, each word explain. Again, most of the text, commentaries written by Nalanda masters. Oh, yes, Tibetan masters. All Tibetan masters' writing ultimately depend on one quotation of Nalanda masters. So therefore, you see, Tibetan Buddhism is truly Nalanda tradition. Okay. So about translation, about 300 volumes, 320 volumes translated from India. These are our texts. So contents, these 300 volumes, over 300
subject matter
300 volumes, can divide 3 parts: science part, and then philosophical part, then religious part. So our last 30 years, about 30 years of our sort of discussion,
dialogue 남
not dealing with Buddhist religion. In the philosophical field, yes, such as you say, the concept of big sort of gap, appearances and reality. Usually, you see, we say truth. That some extent in our sort of discussion. For example, quantum physics. If you look, quantum physics sort of the theory, you can't find flower, these things. Another one level, yes, we can say flower, good and bad, good smell, bad smell, like that. Deeper, we can't find. No kasota.
objective reality
Objectives of reality. So this clearly you see, shows gap, appearances, and very, very deeper level of reality. Such things, you see,
relevant
some relevant. And then impermanence, momentarily changing. Subatomic sort of level, all the time moving. Otherwise, like Four Noble Truths, these are Buddhist business, not with scientists. Then the Buddhist science now about external matter, so particles and internal matter, mind, emotion, these things. Now, this is now common subject. That the boundary very good.
so when it comes to the science of mind then yes there is no boundary And it's a, the subject matter is really a shared common interest between both Buddhism and science.
So as I mentioned earlier, the modern science really sort of pay attention or thorough research about matters. So immense help to us. And the mind, Buddhists, no labs, but brain considered as a lab. And through that way, this is some experience and some knowledge about mind, emotion, and how to tackle this emotion. That's very helpful to scientists.
So then we have a same kind of, a scope and a field of inquiry between Buddhism and science.
So last 30 years, you see, we never discuss about next life or rebirth, these things. It's something different. Like that. When we discuss about consciousness and then continuation of consciousness, that sometimes involved. That implication is the no beginning of consciousness and no end of consciousness. So rebirth theory now connected there. Not that, because of that. So today we do not discuss directly, but some implication you got that.
As an implication, it does turn up once in a while.
That's what I was referring to. That's what I was referring to.
So,
Yes.
yeah, I think it's related to what you're talking about in terms of the kind of cleaner distinctions we might make between what science will, how science is going to engage with contemplative practice and contemplative traditions versus what is sort of off limits. But now, in today's day and age, there has been a real interest, especially in the West, to bring contemplative practices to almost every major sector in our society. So in healthcare, in education, in the military, in schools, in addition to higher education, as well as business contexts. So now as we move toward these practices being part of what's offered to the society at large, I would like to ask you a little bit about something you've talked quite a bit about in the past, secular ethics, and how that aspect of what is part of contemplative practice and contemplative traditions, how that should be considered as we bring these practices to aspects of society. What are the key things that you'd say we should be keeping in mind?
I think firstly, as I mentioned earlier, the ultimate source of happiness is within ourselves. Calm mind is the ultimate source of happy life, and also ultimate source of good health. So therefore, now for that, the knowledge, sufficient knowledge about emotion or mind. So that now we already now involved last few years. We are trying to make a curriculum purely based on secular approach. It can be fit in secular education field. So next, I think 1 or 2 years, that curriculum, draft of that curriculum can be available. So here, one way, map of mind. That is academic subjects.
So although the even ultimate aim or the primary aim of bringing these kind of contemplative adaptations in, say, for example, in the secular ethics arena, is to really help individuals develop skills to be able to bring greater peace of mind and happy and promote their well-being and so on. But what is required is, as a basis, as a first step, some teaching or a kind of skills to have some kind of understanding of how the mind works, how the emotion world works. And His Holiness was saying that he often refers to this as having some kind of map of emotions, as a kind of a cognitive knowledge.
So recent years is we use the word, the hygiene of physical, hygiene of emotion. So we can teach how to take care of your physical health. So hygiene of physical. So there are things to learn. Similarly, hygiene of emotion. Also, you see, just 1,000 times repeat compassion, compassion, compassion. This is useless. You have to
Understand.
You have to understand the whole map of emotion. Then what kind of emotion brings what kind of sort of feeling, such as love, affection, these things. When we develop that or show other people these things, you feel happy, safe. Anger, fear, hatred, these emotions are shown by other, you feel uncomfortable. Then the person himself or herself also, you see, these different emotions, you see, develop, they feel certain emotion brings inner strength. So relax. Certain emotion brings tense. Disturbances. So then, what is the immediate causes of mental level using these emotions? So we need
For example, if we take the example of anger, in Buddhist psychological thinking, we understand that anger arises as a result of frustration, some kind of sense of dissatisfaction. Similarly, if we look at the practical methods for cultivating compassion, some of these techniques rely on reflecting upon kindness of others, and then in that way you establish the sense of connection and gratitude. The other kinds of method emphasizes establishing a kind of a commonality and recognizing that just as I wish for happiness and do not wish suffering, the other person too do not wish suffering and wish for happiness. And on that level, you establish the connection and then extend compassion.
So in order to take seriously about hygiene of emotion, you need some knowledge about the world of emotion. So that one part is we can take as a subject, as of the academic subject.
Almost like an academic subject, yeah.
And then conclude
As a conclusion.
And
And then from this, on the basis of understanding how these various emotions work and their internal dynamics and relations, then you can develop the conviction, yes, compassion is important for my happiness, for my well-being.
So transform 7 billion human beings and ultimately whole world more peaceful, very much related with compassionate world. So that you cannot inject, through injection, bring compassionate world, impossible. Or more force, just opposite. So the only thing is
Mental transformation.
mental transformation. Mental transformation never takes place by force, by fear. by compulsory, must voluntarily. So in order to carry voluntarily, you have to know pros and cons, right? These different emotions. Then willingness for my own interest. I have to sort of reduce this destructive emotion. I have to increase these positive emotions. So education, awareness, extremely important. So the existing modern education system is very much oriented about material value. That's my view. So now, existing education system, not complete.
So it doesn't really serve the full needs of a growing human being. Yeah.
The inner value can't do it.
But on the other hand, the problem is the moment we speak of inner values and its importance, people tend to think about religion.
That the non-value among
But then that approach based on religion does not really reach everybody because there are a lot of non-believers as well.
And frankly speaking, as I mentioned earlier, among the believers also, you see a lot of destructive emotions, corruptions also there. So therefore, these are clearly shows lack of real conviction about inner value. Once these convictions there, then religious sort of teaching really sort of helpful, further develop like that. Okay.
Well, I have one more thing to ask
Sure.
because of the same point that you raised around conviction and voluntarily having an interest in cultivating compassion or other types of mental qualities that contemplative practice allows us to cultivate. Many times people don't have an intrinsic interest. And many times now in current society, their offering or their knowledge of contemplative practice, in particular mindfulness training, comes through the workplace, let's say, or it comes through their profession in some way. So what do you think about actually having connection between the ethical code or the values of their profession connecting with what you're calling secular ethics?
간단 밀폐버지기 가르쳐는 이제 그냥 가서 그렇다. 낭수서를 진짜네 수 가르려야 했는데 뒤로.
단독 모란 제거돼 들으시던데 직수단 총총도 대전날데 배주 제변은 코란주 대한 닝시단도 저렇게 총보주 지소 나로 배주 지금 코란주 대외로 날 추고요 말와. 이때 로장에 그 곰그리 망보지 닝시단데 셴뱅게 value 요지걸 디 군주 초배 value 날 레버 제고로 베스.
That the tag summed up in it. I think that depends the different level of awareness. One level, just your own circle, your own sort of
organization,
your own organization, or your own work. And then it's a compassion, these things, not direct sort of relevance. Then, from wider perspective, you are still in a human society, such as business. Now, here, connected with huge gap, rich and poor. The people involved in economy, they have the moral responsibility to think seriously how to reduce this gap rich to poor. Now here, moral principle now related. And for long run, any company, any national company, or some American sort of company, really from their profit, you see, making contributions. So these things, there are. So these, that's the keepsan치고 계시면서, 다 간다, 질 팬버지, 미껴지지, 샴지도돼야, 들려서인데.
So it's only saying that even among the existing corporations, there are varying levels of kind of corporate responsibility. So there are some companies which are profit companies, but at the same time they have a much higher level of social responsibility as part of their corporate values, and they make it a point to share some of their profits to help and contribute to the society. So, and the main point is that those organizations and business institutions who are interested in their long-term success, then those consideration has to be part of it. But earlier, His Holiness was saying that as far as adapting contemplative practices and bringing it to various sectors of the society, whatever works, the motivation has to be to help.
So, for example, scientists, when they carry some serious research work, then is this some sort of training, single-pointed mind, or sharpness of mind for investigation? Isn't this very helpful? And this, again, indirectly related with compassionate mind. More compassionate mind there, you see, these work properly. Too much frustration, or anger, fear, see, our brain cannot utilize fully. Too much, isn't it? So, any human activities ultimately related with inner peace. So, should not take as a religious thing, as well-being of human being. Like that. What? Next question?
Thank you, Your
Next
Holiness.
question now.
Your Holiness, there are many people here in the audience that are now starting to undertake the scientific study of different forms of Buddhist meditation. I wonder if you can help us in thinking about this area are there any stages along the path of practice that are common across different forms of Buddhist meditation practice? And one of the things that we as scientists are always looking for, as you well know, Your Holiness, are ways to measure the qualities that Your Holiness often talks about. Qualities like warm-heartedness, qualities like compassion. We, in the scientific arena, we do not have good measures of these qualities. And I wonder from your own experience if there are specific behavioral markers, or is there a quality of demeanor, of comportment, something that we can begin to investigate that may be helpful in marking different stages along the path that scientists can potentially explore and harness in the work in this area?
남주사 말다가도 건축광한 태슈 때와 다대차래야 체제해서
저 신남주탄에다 그 따야지.
체는 템부요 말해서 그 체소에 그 체도야 답시에는 신남주다 야 미대 삼당당다 군주 단대 돈에 남배슈는 셰샤도 군주 냠용 돈에 세시 중매나 세르보 군주 때 스펜서레스 영 침주 체배가블이야
지 난게 녀어서 소소소다 들어. 맞아. 체도 가고다디. I think that's difficult. 다한테 폴 액맨 공기식 동근 남주탄에 직대 가서 그게 심중을 뭐 무지 시에도 와. 나와 진짜 탄에 직대야 말어.
마시지다 중내야 체도 송여로 친 룡한 남주도 송여로.
다 그렇죠. 다만 시한데 류진 남주탄에 지용 거다 송어도 배시서 그렇지 않습니다. 현 주저는 주시다 진솔을 인해서 다르서 벤치면도 다서 좀 먹으시다 류기셔라고 하네. 류등아 이 애는 가라 지난데요. 천원 내에 양에 럽거든. 추이를 요원한 게 뜬시네. 딱하는 밑에 잡아서 되게 먹고지 타는데 다양지. 또 그들 때 그랬을 것이다. I don't know.
Someone was saying that this is actually quite a complicated and difficult question. And it reminds him of Paul Ekman's facial coding techniques, which may be one way of going about looking at some of these, indicating certain emotions on the part of the person who's expressing those emotions. Yes, there are in the Buddhist texts quite a lot of discussions about these behavioral indications of different kind of realizations. For example, in one text it says, just as we infer the presence of fire through the perception of smoke, just as we can infer the presence of a body of water by waterfalls kind of hovering above in the skies, in the same manner the mental qualities of the bodhisattva can be inferred on the basis from their own external behavior science. And similarly, in
That's
some...
just to say, one or two occasions, we cannot decide. It's a prolonged way.
It's a sort of a... It's not just, observance of...
Yes, and particularly passing through difficult circumstances, then we can know the person's real inner state. So in order to do that investigation, you create more problem to other people.
So to complete the translation, then His Holiness was saying that there is also a beautiful line which says that although the fish may hide beneath the surface of water, but by judging the movement of bubbles on top, one could even infer the presence of fish. So, and the point here is that yes, there are behavioral and verbal and kind of attitudinal expressions or signs that can be indicative of people's states of mind. But here, as he pointed out, it's not a question of just observing once or twice. It's a sustained observation also in different settings, and particularly under challenging situations. And then there are discussions of lists of actually quite a behavioral science indicative of much more advanced levels of realization. There's a whole collection of them known as signs of irreversibility, but those are, we're talking about quite advanced states of mind.
challenge that was challenge 타네 거다 다 선은 위아데 이 클럽을 좀 아주 승부에 링고 중에서
Yes.
링고 무슨 링고 심심을 해서 아니 미스테 또 스코어 되잖아 저 같이 왔어 와서 공부했어 원철이 잡아서 왔어 아니 남산랜드 잡아줬어
So therefore, it's the observance of these signs, especially under challenging situations, is an important one. So this reminds a story that Kunalama Rinpoche once told, where
I received serious teaching from him. Very, very, was not normal, humble person. No.
So he said that there was a man circumambulating, and in the Kora section there was one person sitting down and meditating. And then the person who was circumambulating asked him, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I'm meditating." "And what are you meditating on?" He said, "Patience." And then this person who was walking around said, "Well, in that case, go to hell." And without beating a second, the meditator immediately responded back, "You go to hell." So the main point His Holiness was making is that it's actually quite difficult to really develop those kind of measures. Science.
So as I mentioned earlier, you see, through difficult circumstances, then you see that person's sort of mental level still remain calm. That's one sort of
Indication.
indication. But then deliberately create some problem. That also is difficult. So, like that.
So
Then I think, then best thing is,
Perhaps the simplest thing would be to cultivate first clairvoyance. And
to know
that's Buddhist business.
not only Buddhist, but many ancient Indian sort of non-Buddhist tradition also you say have the same practice of shamatha. like that. So here I have one nice little story. I think in the early 1960s, one American who settled in a similar area,
In
he
India.
in India. He also is showing interest about Buddhist practice. Then I know him. So one day he told me he have the ability to know other person's mind. Then I set up certain thought. Then asked him, what thought occurring in my mind? And he mentioned something totally wrong. So I follow scientific way.
So, Your Holiness, just to follow up on this, do you think that it requires exposing a person to adversity or to challenge in order to identify these qualities, or is it possible to discern them in other contexts? So must we have a challenging context? In some sense, I think that if you look at the scientific research in this area, it is replete with examples of subjecting people to various kinds of adversity, to physical pain, to stresses that are what's called psychosocial stresses, where we have a person give an interview, to mental arithmetic, to challenging cognitive problems. So there's a lot of that, but is that a requirement in order to identify these markers of progress?
그래서
간다 로이 단 본저 템바된 체중다 닝지 체중다 두저데 간다 나도 컨셉을 보자 심주 제발 갑래 치고 예로 주서 이제 대치기 어레스
이리리.
내가 제시해 주 여러분들 내가 돈다지 내가 다는 딘데게 강사 바로 교육이 아니 시베 대체 보야래야 인지미지 갱행지가 워래 치도니네 고 영화지 된제 델립 처바지 그래 대마이바 탑시 현다 요나스 갱행지 테로 주제 아니 고 델라 처바지 왜나
또 윤생이 다시 재미인데 그러신 도래.
그래. The other alternative is to do a much more sustained observation rather than a kind of a one or twice kind of challenging situations. It's a more sustained observation.
아니 아저씨 유지층에서 사고 있어도나.
So in that case, maybe we should set up this kind of sustained observation examining committee.
And that also in some sense spying. 근데 지금도 왔다 스파이 쪽으로 왔다.
So it's kind of a spy.
6 months, 1 year, spying, watching.
All of our work needs to be approved by ethics committees, human subjects committees.
the university 돈에야 the 정신식국어로
Can I ask a follow-up? So another strategy, so Richie was asking you about hints we might get, guidance we might get from traditional texts on what to look for. But another approach that may be something we can think about is having the scientists themselves learn firsthand and experience firsthand what these practices are. And in fact, you know, for those of us in the room that are in that situation, I think many of us come to wanting to understand and study contemplative practice because of our personal practice. But, you know, it ends up that there are traditions that have done this before. And my name, Amishi Jha, the last name, is from a region of India called Bihar. And Bihar, as I understand, was where Nalanda was. So I would love it if you could say a little bit about that former tradition that existed that did try to blend the first-person perspective with a scholarly and scientific strategy to kind of guide us today.
아래 단대 단 세레버 코란 줄에 대한 공부 돌때 치도 수준 냠용 돈에 대치 그러바스 나는 뭐라 나는 메인데 비하르다 되고 그러바스 날랜데 비게 그 날랜데게 양 개바 망보 주바야 낭양 개바야 낭지 수수용 원이야. 안에 딱제 제제. 근데 그 수중에 막 타요 봐서.
이대로.
디졸 때스 간낭 배나 팬도미용 센서리 보죠 따단지. 심주치당 골이야.
근데 이제 말하는 베르샤샤나 로짱니 리메기 배나 천진 낭신 아니 총주야. 되는 치매 낭신 도야. 다른 집에는 요몽 샤샤나 지 대외 연대를 차배 차과 도야. 또 진짜 배셔도.
네. So of course you're right. They were great Nalanda
아니
masters.
네 미디 지금 신스 거로야.
그래.
다 지금 매봐 이 돈도 생각이 요다야.
So you're right that there were many great Nalanda masters who were both practitioners as well as great thinkers and who were critically
This is not
examining
only Narendra now follower of
the Nalanda tradition,
Nalanda tradition or Buddhist tradition,
Buddhist tradition. Yeah.
Theravada. There are people well known that they are Arahatare. Then the venue you have a
So they are, they are very highly revered, well-known masters, including in the Theravada tradition, who are, universally recognized as having attained certain states like Arahat. So they were individuals who not only were great practitioners, but also.
Arahatare 실은 과스자야겠지만. 그 난게 냠용부터 하네. 사실래
So, for example, like attainment of the Arahat state is not a kind of a status conferred from the institution to an individual from outside. It is an state that is attained by the individual, and because of the qualities that are displayed by the individual, the community comes to recognize that this individual is a Arahat. So these individuals were meditators, but also great thinkers who reflected upon their own experiences. So the indications of these are, for example, like as an informed meditator, like a monk, would, as a result of the practice,
not only monk, but lay people also.
as a result of the practice, might actually begin to recognize that there is no attachment to the kind of
Now, say through years practice, then the same object which 10 years ago you really feel much sort of
attraction, attraction or attachment.
attraction. Then compare today's your sort of feeling. Compare 10 years ago, you find some change and grasping independent sort of existence. Perhaps now it looks
It looks a bit like showing off myself.
It's a certain understanding. I think 30, 40 years ago and today, much differences.
So, for example, one of the key perspectives that is developed in the Buddhist tradition is the recognizing the illusion-like character of external world, recognizing their kind of ephemeral nature. So His Holiness was
As a
saying,
result of constant thinking, I think 24 hours, including my dream, thinking about absence of independent existence. That really helped, immense help. The whole sort of attitude
it's changed, yeah.
so that the 차단기약이 싫고 베이스 거라 두르다는 거지.
So those kind of changes in the mind really begins to shake the very foundation that normally gives support a lot of our reactive emotions like anger, attachment, and then so on.
So now that is Buddhist business.
So to
So Indians, I mean Hindus, Atma. I think 2 years ago, one occasion in Bangalore, South India, a wonderful sort of spiritual leader or organization. He really work as a helping 1,000 students provide meal. Wonderful. So they invited me. I went there. Wonderful. Then, just private conversation. We talked about some Buddhist practice and Hindu practice. Then I told, yes, we are traditionally trained spiritual brothers, sisters. All three training:
morality,
single-pointed mind, and then wisdom. These are same. The only differences is Atma and Anatma,
self and no self. Yeah.
Oh. So Hindu, Atma, I am Buddhist, Anatma theory. Then I told him, that's private business. I believe Anatma, useful. You believe Atma is quite useful. So, no problem. Oh, yes.
So to finish the translation, His Holiness was saying that so the individual practitioners will come to recognize in their own mental attitudes and states of mind how the changes are occurring, based on how they are less tempted by the external kind of sensory stimulations and sensual objects and desires and so on. So there's a less fixation and all of these. So these are experiences that the individual, those who are informed of their own mind, will come to recognize that are occurring within themselves. But one does have to watch out. Sometimes there are individuals who will claim all sorts of things. That's also a possibility. Just because someone said so, we shouldn't be taking at their face value.
Good. Thank you. Your Holiness, I wonder, now having participated for so many years in Mind and Life Dialogues, if there still remain key questions that you wish scientists would address that we don't have a good answer for yet, that you think that science may be able to investigate. Are there any key questions that you would urge us to explore?
I don't know particular thing. I don't know. I think, as I mentioned before, two purposes. One, expansion of knowledge. Still, you see, we can have more work, more discussion, and eventually, I think the Buddhist science
that we have compiled the scientific aspects of the subject matter of the Buddhist texts.
And then also that
and also the kind of the traditional Buddhist methodology of using reasoning as a primary medium to establish these ideas. So, for example, the format would be in this particular compilation, what is the presentation of the views about reality, and the presentation of the views about the subjective mind that that engages with reality. And the third is the manner in which the mind engages with reality and how understanding arises through this process. For example, from an individual's point of view, someone may have initially a state of doubt or a total misunderstanding of a particular fact. And through exposure to the facts and reasoning, that misunderstanding or distorted knowing could be turned into a doubt, which then again could be turned into a kind of an understanding, eventually to a form of conviction or a true knowledge.
That the tablamlia touching the lodo seal tengu. Any that the javajalia and tensiquia that is.
And then the methods for training the mind so that the mind can engage with the reality in an effective manner. So then we have two main approaches. One is the consequential reasoning, which is to really undermine the solidity of a distorted understanding. And then the next is the syllogism, which is a more formal proof, the standards of proof and forms of argument, which then help develop inferences based on observed facts.
다한테 디다 탭찬다 비난 서사를
So this volume,
예비직 써요. 다 정부 수고.
this volume, this compilation has already been done in Tibetan language in 2 volumes, which is the more extended version, and a middle length version will be in 1 volume.
That the English translation already we started. I think maybe beginning of next year, maybe completed. The Chinese translation already there. Hindi translation already there.
Started, yeah.
Ah.
Started.
Started. Then Mongolian, Korean, German, one organization, Hamburg University, one small sort of group there. They already now committed German translation. The Spanish translation not yet. Portuguese translation also not yet. Then Italian or Russian translation, I think they are
Started, yeah.
started.
French, Europe.
So like that. So these, I think, can be useful to further expand our knowledge. Now the point is second purpose.
So the one important point is how can then we take this insight and knowledge from science and apply it for the service of humanity, society?
Now that, of course, firstly, like this meeting, you see, more discussion and make more awareness, more people, more different countries, then receive their opinions, their suggestions, and then further
Refined.
refine.
Expand. No.
How many countries here?
38.
It's 38?
38.
38.
38. So,
So the members of the various countries that are represented here, so on the part of each individual, first of all, you really need to feel convinced that this is valuable. This is something that is really in the service of humanity. There is something here that is substantive. And if once you feel convinced, then in your own area you can start making contribution by spreading it and sharing with others and establishing kind of from a grassroots level.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So we talked about 38 countries represented here, and we talked about applying this to right now. Last night we began this conference with a beautiful presentation by Diana Walsh Chapman, in which she described for us very poignantly the problem we're in right now as a world in terms of climate change.
Yes.
Right, so one of the things that Richie and I would like to chat with you a little bit about is if you have any specific recommendations on particular practices, particular concepts that might help impel all of us to think deeply about this problem and act in an immediate manner.
I think from Buddhist tradition, I don't know. Only one story. Is a Buddha, his birth, not in the palace, but on the tree. Then when he enlightened, when he got enlightenment on the Buddha tree, when he passed away on the tree. En didoa, duenalia, any gindu, nesus dosat, yanetsu, indus perduroda. Susan any gindu, ngolishung is chicken to show. The any gindu gemat pinging, that nedus condrash, what Susan am mutuni, and the shing jedecha, didoa.
So if you look,
Yanekudulia,
so the kind of the concern, or at least kind of the protection of the environment where the monastics are living, seem to be actually built in the very ethos of the monastic life. If you look at the scriptures, in the old days, the monastic groups would move from one retreat to another retreat, and another batch will come. And in the Vinaya text, there are very explicit references to what are the responsibilities of the new group of monks coming into this retreat. And one of them is the importance of making sure that the saplings of trees that have been planted by the previous group are taken care of, watered, and looked after. So there seems to be a genuine emphasis on this. And then similarly, during the rainy season retreat, there is an explicit prohibition of any activity that would involve cutting a life, like tree or bushes and so on. And then emphasizing the need to make sure that the water in the local area are not polluted and kept pure.
Otherwise, I don't know. But now I think the practical level,
삼로단단 돌이야 기반메로스 레 요르베스 슈도 텐주 두름주 something.
I think Buddhism, also like Jainism, is a very much emphasis about non-violence, ahimsa, and don't sort of harm animals, insects. So the environment, the insect,
So
wild.
this emphasis on non-violence, even towards animals, seems to be very much related to the kind of concern for the environment, especially the wild.
And then I think mainly I think practical level, the scientist, now again is a scientist, the ecologist. They really, make a presentation. If presence is trend, go continuously. Meantime, population also increasing. Then the consequences is really very, very serious. So then this planet is our only home. If this sort of home eventually become desert, in the order.
So where can we all go?
Scientists, particularly technologists, some big craft, spacecraft, go to some other planet, and then we might sort of invade them if there is sort of suitable area there. That also doubt. Spend a lot of money, a lot of energy, when reach there, hopeless. So therefore, you see, this is our home, only home. So it is our responsibility, also our responsibility to look after, take care of this home, like our own room, like that. So that also is, I think, the education on the basis of those experts sort of the
Findings.
detailed sort of explanation. For myself, when I first came to India, I have no idea about the responsibility of ecology. Then as a sort of meeting with scientists, who that's detailed, precisely, you see, the
Explanation.
consequences.
Precise explanation, detailed explanations of the potential consequences of human behavior on the environment.
So then another thing, obviously, like violence, bloodshed, immediately stuck on our mind. The degenerate of environment. Not that kind of sort of
Obvious.
obvious, but without much sort of
Visibility.
visibility, gradually some damage. Then when we actually feel some lung infection due to dirty air and some problem of eye, then maybe too late. So therefore, we really need sort of education. And because of taking care of the planet should be part of our life. That's very important. So I always telling or expressing these things. And small contribution from my own part.
So His Holiness was saying that on his part, a small contribution he makes is that whenever he's out of the room, switches off the light.
One thing. Then,
And do not take any baths in a bathtub
because of safe way.
to save water.
But 2 showers, one morning, one evening. So I don't know how much difference is.
Your Holiness, one of the, when we were all together in Dharamsala for the meeting on ecology, ethics, and interdependence, there was a talk
Yes.
by Elke Weber, who is a psychologist at the Earth Institute at Columbia in New York. And she made, I think, a very important point, and the point that she made was that in order to engage citizens to do something helpful, it's important not to simply convey a negative message about how bad everything is. When we hear all the facts about the planet, it can induce a state of helplessness. We don't know what to do, where to turn, and one of the things that she pointed out, which I thought was so beautiful, is that when Martin Luther King gave his speech, the title of his speech was not, "I have a nightmare." It was a positive vision. And I think that, Your Holiness, I wonder if you can help us create that positive vision in a way that will motivate us to engage.
Okay.
So since we're talking about interdependent nature of things, in order to relative nature of things, in order to really give the good news, the dream, first we have to know the facts, how bad it is.
Negative side, man. The positive side, look at me.
Because without painting the negative, picture first, then there is, you cannot appreciate the positive side.
And then also, I think to some people, I think positive sort of sign, the positive side, they may say, "Oh, good, wonderful, but not much serious." Or negative side, you see, your own sort of life, your own community, now because of consequences come, then more serious. That also, I think, human psychology is also to
So the human mind is very, very complex.
I'm afraid our time is gradually drawing to a close, Your Holiness. And this remarkable exchange is one example of the kind of dialogue that has gone on for 27 years, that began in your living room. And if one thinks about the relationship between science and religion, science and spiritual philosophy over many hundreds of years, it hasn't always been such a friendly exchange. There's often been a kind of conflict that's been perceived between these two great traditions of inquiry and concern for the human being and for the planet. And I think what we have here is an example of how through dialogue we can move from conflict first perhaps to mutual understanding, and then from that mutual understanding to collaboration, and then from that collaboration can flow unexpected benefits into society, into healthcare, education, even our practical life and business and governance. And I think this kind of exchange over 20-some years, 25, 27 years, is one example that can be held up as an exemplar to all of us here and beyond these walls of what can in fact be accomplished. There are going to be 300 and more presentations. You don't have to go to all of them. Because there are going to be over 300 presentations by some 400 presenters in individual posters, presentations, keynotes, dance performances, works of art, all celebrating this exchange. It's been an extraordinary journey that we've walked with you. And we want to thank you and also our guests here, Amishi and Richie, for the extraordinary exchange they've had. And we'd like to actually bring up a fruit of that exchange, which goes in a different way, a gift that we would like to present to you. And so I'm going to ask our helpers, yes, to bring this large gift here up onto the stage, and I'll also invite Benedict Taschen and his entourage to join us also up here on the stage in order to offer this gift.
Yes. 또 가져오래.
So I'd like to invite Thomas Laird and Robert Thurman and Benedict Taschen to come to the stage. And I'd like to tell the Mind and Life audience here what is before us.
좋은 분이라 그래.
There are many ways in which the teachings of Buddhism have been exchanged. Some has been through the words that have been spoken, for example, here, or the oral teachings, but also the arts. Hi, Benedict Arthur Zion. It's nice to meet you. This is the first copy of a remarkable book that's going to be presented to you by its authors, Thomas Laird and Robert Thurman, and its publisher, Benedict Taschen. In this conference, we are, used to exchanging teachings and learnings and conversation and practices.
Shalu, yes.
The arts of Tibet have long been another medium for transmitting Tibetan practices. The murals of Tibet, which you see above you also in the pictures that are above, these murals of Tibet in particular have had this purpose of teaching the practices and understandings. They're now in danger of degradation and so have been largely unknown outside Tibet.
Yes.
Thomas Laird, realizing their importance, moved to preserve this important cultural heritage for the world and has documented them with very high resolution photography. So next year, Taschen Books will publish images in a limited edition as Murals of Tibet.
Bob is doing the text.
Bob Thurman has been doing the text that associated with this, detailing the meanings and understandings. So in gratitude for your support, also, Your Holiness,
One picture of you over here.
Okay.
great. Thank you. In gratitude of Your Holiness's support in helping to produce this book, also I just want to thank the Taschen Foundation for their support of Mind and Life.
그래. Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much. Really appreciate all your support and your help in this remarkable work of art and celebrating the great arts of Tibet. Yeah. Maybe you can make your way down that way. Your Holiness, once again, our deep gratitude to you for these decades of collaboration. It's been a deep joy.
Thank you. So, okay. So these years, see, without their sort of full cooperation, right? Cooperation and work hard, you see, this kind of achievement cannot
Take place.
take place. So although at a mental level also, you see, there are cooperator,
Colleagues.
colleagues, you see, provide new ideas, new knowledge. But practical level, perhaps, I think maybe, you see, because of the too ambitious or because of the prejudices,
Presumptuous Islam.
presumptuous, yes. Idea, I think, come from here. But they truly implement these things seriously, sincerely. So like hand. So head and hand together. Now some contribution. So I really appreciate. Only head, then blah, 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 blah. That's all. With hand, they really something effective sort of activities.
Action.
So, thank you. Now this is both American. So now,
Sumdo. Sumga yorum. Sum ajatile.
you of course originally from India. So this idea come from India. Secular ethics. Now implementation carried by American. So now many, I think over 30 countries. So another American invasion. Now this sense, very, very positive invasion. Thank you. Thank you. Now please, don't think we are something special. Don't think that we are same human being. We are part of the 7 billion human being. We all have common responsibility to think, to serve as much as possible to humanity and planet. So please utilize your own sort of opportunities or professions. Please. Then I think if everybody really, you see, same sort of goal, better world, happier world, use different professions, then I think there is possibility. Not within our lifetime. Now my age, nearly 80 years. So perhaps next 10, 15, most 20 years. I don't think big achievement come, big change come within 20 years. But if we make attempt now, it is possible. End of this 21st century, I think can be a better world, happier world. So that's our because it should be our
Goal.
goal. Thank you. Thank you much.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Holiness.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rishi. Thank you, Rishi. Thank you.
So, thank you.